He had a son and a daughter, and his wife was Summer Sterling, the woman who consistently topped the Forbes list, whom Time magazine had dubbed the #1 woman every man in the world wants to marry. A woman the British royal family was reportedly angling to set up with a prince. Everyone said Cole Anderson was the luckiest man alive. So the first thing he did was take the divorce papers to her first love. He slid the agreement across the polished table to Julian Vance, his voice calm. I want a divorce. Summer is yours. The kids are yours too. Julian stared at him, stunned, unable to believe that the man who'd occupied the role of husband for 6 years would suddenly just give up. Cole added flatly, since they all prefer you anyway, I'll make it easy for you. Just get Summer to sign. Once the legal waiting period is over, I'll be gone. This time, he wouldn't repeat the mistakes of his past. He wouldn't continue being the invisible Mr. Anderson. Julian's fingertips traced the rim of his coffee cup, his brow furrowed. Cole, what kind of game are you playing? Cole watched the emotions flicker across Julian's face and repeated calmly, I'm not playing a game. I'm just done. Cole, do you have any idea how many men would kill to be in your position? I do, Cole said, meeting his gaze. That's why I'm giving it to you. A crack finally appeared in Julian's perfect facade. He stared at the papers for a long moment before finally taking them. Fine, if you're being so generous, I won't be polite. He leaned forward. But you should know, once I have something, I never let it go. Don't worry, Cole said with a slight, humorless smile. I won't have any regrets. After all, in his last life, he'd already tasted what it was to die utterly alone. Julian got up, moved to another table in the Bluebird Cafe, and gracefully pulled out his phone, his fingers tapping the screen. When the call connected, his voice instantly softened. Summer, I'm at the Bluebird. Can you come pick me up? Cole, sitting in the corner, felt a bitter smile touch his lips. Once upon a time, he'd call Summer 10 times and get her assistant 9 of them. Now, in less than 20 minutes, the woman who was perpetually in a meeting appeared at the cafe door. Through the glass, Cole watched Summer stride in, her black, custom-tailored suit dress accentuating her long, slender legs. His 6-year-old son, Leo, and 4-year-old daughter, Mia, launched themselves at Julian, smothering him in hugs and kisses. Uncle Julian, Mia chirped, rubbing her cheek against his chest. Summer placed a cake box on the table, her long fingers pushing it gently toward him. Chocolate, your favorite. I had the chef go easy on the sugar. Julian's eyes lit up. You always remember. Cole, forgotten in his corner, dug his fingernails into his palm. After 6 years of marriage, Summer didn't even know what flavor he liked. In his last life, when he was sick in the hospital and craved a simple rice pudding, she'd send her assistant to buy some, and they brought back mango sorbet. He was allergic to mangoes. What are you in the mood for tonight? Summer's voice was aloof, smooth alto. French or Italian? Julian just smiled, pulling the divorce papers from his briefcase. Before that, there's a document I wanted you to look at. He flipped it open to the signature page. I have my eye on a new condo, but my liquid cash is a little tight. I was wondering if you could. Summer took the pen and signed her name without even glancing at the contents. Between you and me, why do we have to be so formal? Is Uncle Julian buying a new house? Leo asked, his little face tilted up. Mom, you should buy a place next door. Mia and I want to move in with Uncle Julian. We don't want to be with Dad all the time. Summer's brow twitched, but seeing the hopeful looks in her children's eyes, she relented. All right, we'll get a place. No need for all that trouble, Julian said quickly. I'll keep 3 rooms free for Leo, Mia, and you. You can come stay whenever you want. The children cheered. Mia even threw her arms around Julian's neck and kissed his cheek. Uncle Julian is the best. 1,000 times better than that. Cole's heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, a dull, suffocating ache that made it hard to breathe. He saw the corner of Summer's mouth curve upward in a gentle smile, a warmth she had never once shown him. Unable to watch anymore, he picked up his bag and walked out. The moment he stepped outside, memories of his past life flooded back. In that life, he and Summer were joined in a corporate merger of a marriage. They'd had a son and a daughter, and he'd lived to be 62, but he'd never known a day of happiness. It was all because Summer's heart had always belonged to her childhood sweetheart, Julian Vance. After they'd broken up, Julian had gone abroad. Summer had drowned her sorrows in alcohol for a few days, but her pride kept her from trying to win him back. Instead, she'd agreed to her family's arrangement. Summer had been his dream since he was a teenager. Cool, independent, the heiress to the Sterling Empire. What young man in New York's high society didn't dream of marrying her? So when he learned of their impending union, he was ecstatic. But after the wedding, he poured his entire being into loving her, only to be met with her perpetual distance and indifference. Until Julian came back, she never mentioned divorce, but her gaze never left Julian. Worse, both of their children adored Julian, growing more and more distant from him. In his later years, Cole was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Citing a need for quiet recuperation, Summer abandoned him in their old estate. On his birthday, he'd shakily called his wife and children, only to learn they were on vacation with Julian in the Maldives. He tried to cook himself a simple meal, but his confused memory led him to forget to turn off the stove. As the flames consumed him, the last thing Cole remembered was the icy look in Summer's eyes as she placed the wedding ring on his finger. He'd closed his eyes in agony, his only wish that if there was a next life, he would never, ever waste it on her again. When Cole returned to their penthouse, it was already dark. He didn't rest. He went straight to the master closet and began clearing things out. Summer's dresses, the children's toys, the family photos. One by one, he tossed them into cardboard boxes. "What are you doing?" Summer's voice cut through the silence from behind him. Cole turned to see her standing in the doorway, holding the children's hands, her brow furrowed in disapproval. "Why are you throwing our stuff away, Daddy?" Mia ran over, her face flushing with anger when she saw her favorite teddy bear in a box. Leo glared at him. "We just want to hang out with Uncle Julian for a little while. Do you have to be so dramatic?" Summer's gaze was as cold as ever. "The children like spending time with Julian. Are you really going to throw a tantrum over something so trivial?" "I'm not angry," Cole said calmly. "Liar," Mia shrieked. "You're just jealous of Uncle Julian. That's why you're throwing away my teddy bear. You're a bad daddy. When I grow up, I'm moving in with Uncle Julian," Leo said viciously, pulling his sister back. "And I'm never coming back to see you." Summer didn't stop their outburst. She just arched a perfect eyebrow, her deep eyes sweeping over Cole as if he were a stranger making a scene. "Enough," she said, her voice crisp with an innate authority. She smoothed down her dress with a careless hand. "I have a video conference with the board. Throw away whatever you want, just keep it down." The moment the door clicked shut, Cole's eyes burned. His heart felt like it had been torn to shreds, every breath tasting of blood. He wiped his tears, looked at the mess around him, and suddenly he laughed. Don't worry, he wouldn't disturb her for the rest of his life. He never would again. He no longer woke up at 5 a.m. to prepare a nutritious breakfast for the children. He no longer waited up for Summer to return from her late-night functions to make her a soothing herbal tea. The household chores he had once considered his duty were now all left to the housekeeper. At first, no one noticed the difference. Not until Leo was late for school and got a reprimand from his teacher. Not until Mia couldn't find her homework notebook. Not until Summer's favorite antique watch stopped ticking. The staff scrambled, but they could never quite match the standards set by the master of the house. The kitchen sink piled up with unwashed dishes, the living room was strewn with toys, and the iron dresses were never quite crisp enough. The once immaculate home slowly descended into chaos. When Summer pushed open the bedroom door, Cole was leaning against the window, reading. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting dappled shadows on him. "How long are you going to keep this up?" she asked from the doorway, her voice low. Cole closed his book and looked up at her. "I'm not keeping anything up." "Then why have you stopped taking care of things around here?" She took a few steps closer, the faint scent of cedarwood from her perfume filling the air. "Are you still angry about the other day?" "I'm not angry." He set the book aside. "I just don't want to do it anymore." Summer narrowed her eyes, her long fingers tapping lightly on the desk. "Reason?" "I'm tired," he said evenly. "There are maids. It can get done without me." He thought of his past life, how he'd woken before dawn every day. Summer's coffee had to be exactly 185 degrees, the toast a perfect golden brown. The children's clothes had to be hand-washed, even their socks ironed flat. And what had it gotten him? Summer's tenderness for Julian, the children's affection for Uncle Julian, and a lonely death at 62. "Cole," her voice turned cold. "If you're having a tantrum, just say so." Don't act like a 3-year-old. He smirked. I'm not having a tantrum. I just want to rest. Before he could finish, the door was thrown open. Leo and Mia stormed in, their faces masks of fury. Dad is being so lazy, Mia shrieked. We want Uncle Julian to come take care of us. Uncle Julian is way more patient than you. Leo chimed in. He works harder than you. He's a million times better than you. Summer's gaze remained locked on Cole's face, as if waiting for him to break. But he just took a deep breath and said softly, If you think he's so great, then bring him over. I have no problem with that. The air froze. Summer's expression finally darkened into a thunderous storm. Are you sure? Cole took another breath. Perfectly sure. Let's go, Mom. Mia tugged impatiently at Summer's sleeve. I want Uncle Julian here right now. With Uncle Julian here, we won't need you anymore. Leo jeered, making a face at Cole. You could just leave. Get out of this house. Summer gave Cole one last look, seeing him still unmoved. She turned and strode out with the children. Cole stood rooted to the spot, listening to the sound of the car engine fading into the distance. He slowly closed his eyes. Soon, he would give them exactly what they wanted. He would leave them and this house for good. This sofa is so drab, Julian said, his long fingers brushing over the genuine leather. He turned to Summer with a soft smile. Summer, darling, can we swap it for a cream-colored one? Without batting an eye, Summer instructed the housekeeper. Do as Mr. Vance says. Cole stood on the landing of the stairs, watching as his movers carried out the sofa she had painstakingly selected just 6 months ago. Leo and Mia trailed behind Julian like two little shadows, pointing excitedly. Uncle Julian, this throw pillow has to go too. The one Dad bought is hideous. Julian stroked their heads gently. All right, we'll replace them all. Cole's fingers tightened into a fist, then slowly relaxed. He had hand-stitched those pillows for Summer when she was pregnant, stuffing them with hypoallergenic down feathers because the kids had sensitive skin as babies. Now they were being tossed into the trash without a second thought. In the following days, the house became increasingly foreign. At the dining table, Julian sat in Cole's old seat, thoughtfully serving food to the children. Summer would occasionally pour him a cup of coffee, her long fingers pushing the cup toward him, her eyes holding a softness Cole had never received. At night, the living room lights would dim, and the four of them would huddle on the new sofa to watch movies. Mia would be curled up in Julian's lap, Leo leaning on Summer's shoulder, their laughter echoing through the halls. When Cole walked past, they wouldn't even glance his way, as if he were completely invisible. The irony was laughable. Summer, Leo, and Mia had always been absurdly demanding about their quality of life. But now he watched as Julian casually tossed her multi-million-dollar Patek Philippe watch face down on the coffee table, and she just smiled indulgently as she put it on. He watched the kids happily wear their school uniforms, which Julian had carelessly thrown in the washer with yesterday's mud stains still on the collars. He watched as Julian dished takeout onto plates and claimed he'd cooked it himself, and no one called him out. Even more absurdly, they treated Julian, a man with no blood relation, better than they had ever treated him, a husband and father. Julian, don't bother with these menial tasks. Summer stopped Julian as he was about to clear away the tea set, her fingers gently resting on his wrist. Your hands are for playing the piano. Uncle Julian, I'll get your bag. Leo eagerly took Julian's limited edition briefcase, an obsequious look on his face that Cole had never seen on his own son. Mr. Vance just needs to rest, the housekeeper said respectfully, handing him a pair of Italian handmade slippers. Leave everything else to us. How ironic. He had been a stay-at-home dad in this house for 6 years, and they had taken him completely for granted. Julian arrived and was immediately treated like a king. Even staff gossiped. Mrs. Sterling is so good to Mr. Vance. I've never seen her treat Mr. Anderson like that. And the kids are so attached to him. I'm telling you, this house is going to have a new master soon. Cole was already numb to it all. He ignored everything, quietly packing his belongings, until that afternoon when his phone buzzed frantically. Sir, the young master and young miss are having an allergic reaction at school. An ambulance just took them to the hospital. When Cole arrived at the hospital, the children had already been rushed into the emergency room. Summer stood in the hallway, her trench coat draped casually over her arm, her eyes churning with cold fury. Cole, she said, her voice low and tight with suppressed rage. What in the hell are you doing? Cole froze. What? They're allergic to mangoes. Did you not know that? Summer advanced on him, her slender frame radiating an intimidating aura. Why did you let them drink mango juice? It wasn't me. Cole looked her straight in the eye. I never bring mangoes into the house. After the first time the kids had been hospitalized from eating mangoes, he'd been obsessively careful, warning everyone, even reviewing the school cafeteria menu himself. How could he make such a rookie mistake? Not you. Summer sneered. Then who? The maid? Or did they just decide to poison themselves? Cole opened his mouth to speak, but a nurse pushed the door open. The children are awake in a hospital room. Leo and Mia lay on the beds, their faces pale. When they saw him enter, their eyes flickered. What happened? Summer demanded. The two children exchanged a look, then simultaneously pointed at Cole. It was Dad. He bought snacks that had mango in them. Cole's entire body went rigid. He stared at them in disbelief. What are you saying? It was Dad. Mia cried, her voice thick with tears. He knew we were allergic, but he gave it to us on purpose. Leo nodded emphatically. He's so mean. Cole's hand gripped the door frame, his knuckles turning white. Leo, Mia, do you have any idea what you're saying? You'd better tell the truth right now. That's enough. Summer shot to her feet, grabbing his wrist. Cole, is this how you act as a father? You not only harm them, but you also try to bully them into lying for you. I didn't. Cole's voice trembled slightly. Are you trying to say they're framing you? She scoffed. They're just children. You can't even take responsibility for this. Do you even deserve to be a father? The two children burst into tears. Summer immediately let go of him and turned to comfort them, but their crying only grew louder, their small faces turning red. Mommy, Mia sobbed. It hurts so much. How can we make it better? Summer asked softly, gently wiping away her tears. Leo looked at Cole, his eyes red. He's allergic to mangoes too. Make him drink mango juice. Make him feel what we feel. An icy chill washed over Cole. He looked at Summer, and the frost in her eyes made him feel cold to the bone. Fine. She straightened up and snapped her fingers. Two bodyguards immediately entered the room. Hold him down. Before Cole could react, he was forced into a chair. A bodyguard pinched his jaw, forcing his mouth open. A full liter of mango juice was poured down his throat. The sickeningly sweet liquid choked him, and he coughed violently, his throat burning. A red rash spread across his skin at a visible rate. His face began to swell, and his breathing became labored. He clawed desperately at his neck, his vision blurring as he looked at Summer. She just stood there, watching coldly, making no move to stop them. The children had stopped crying. They were clapping their hands, excited. Serve him right. He deserves to suffer too. Before the darkness consumed him, the last thing Cole saw was the glacial indifference in Summer's eyes. He didn't know how much time had passed when he woke up in a hospital bed. His throat was raw, and the allergic rash still lingered on his face. He could hear a familiar voice outside the room. It was Julian. Summer, I honestly didn't know they were allergic. I was just trying to make them some juice. It's not your fault. Summer's voice was impossibly gentle. You didn't know? If only I'd come forward sooner, you wouldn't have misunderstood Cole, Julian said, his tone laced with regret. Leo, Mia, you too as well. It was all my fault. How could you protect me by blaming everything on your father? The children's whimpering voices came through clearly. Uncle Julian, we're sorry, Mia sniffled. We just don't like Dad. Yeah, Leo added. He's always bossing us around, not letting us have snacks, and making us go to bed on time. We just wanted him to leave. Cole's fingers clenched the bed sheet, his knuckles white. These were the children he had given up his life to care for. He remembered when 2-year-old Leo was sick with a high fever, and the house was empty. The assistant told him Summer was in a crucial meeting and couldn't be disturbed. He had been swamped with his own work, but had to grit his teeth and handle it alone. Mia had been frail since birth, and he had spent countless nights researching diets and new medical treatments for her, while Summer was overseas for a major corporate acquisition. And now, the two children he had fought so hard to protect had become the ones who hurt him the most. A sudden ring from his phone broke the silence. It was the airline confirming his flight information. Mr. Anderson, your one-way ticket to Portland has been confirmed. Would you like to select a seat? Window, please. Thank you. Cole hastily wiped away a tear, his voice barely a whisper. Just as he hung up, the hospital room door opened. Summer strode in, her posture impeccable, her long legs carrying her with a steady, confident rhythm. "Who was that on the phone?" she asked casually. Cole placed his phone aside. "A friend." Summer didn't press. She just stood by his bed, looking down at him. There was a mistake about the other day. It was Julian who gave them the mango juice. Her tone was as calm as if she were discussing the weather. But he didn't know, so we're just going to let it go. Cole's heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense he could barely breathe. When she thought it was him, she was ready to kill him. But when it was Julian, it was just a simple, forgivable mistake, because he didn't know. He opened his mouth, wanting to question her, to scream, to unleash all the pent-up grief and injustice. But when the words reached his lips, all that came out was a nearly inaudible okay. It was as if all his strength had been drained away. He was so tired, so exhausted he didn't even have the energy to argue. The injustices that had once kept him up at night, the resentment that had built day by day, now just melted into a bitter, self-mocking smile. The difference between being loved and not being loved was just that simple. Summer seemed slightly surprised by his reaction. She paused, then added, "The kids are going to summer camp next week. Julian and I will go with them. You can go home by yourself." She waited for him to beg or protest like he used to, but Cole just nodded calmly. "I understand." Summer frowned, sensing something was off, but her phone rang at that moment. She glanced at the caller ID. Something came up at the office. "I have to go." After the door closed, Cole finally unclenched his fist. For crescent-shaped, bloody marks were etched into his palm. Over the next few days, Cole's phone vibrated incessantly. It was all messages from Julian, a stream of photos and videos documenting the fun at summer camp. In one video, Leo and Mia were proudly introducing Julian to their friends. "This is our dad." The other kids oohed and awed in envy. "Wow, your dad is so handsome. Your mom is beautiful and your dad is handsome. You guys are so lucky." "So who's the guy who usually drops you off at school?" one child asked curiously in a video. Leo and Mia's expressions froze for a second. "Oh, that's just our driver." Cole's hand trembled, and the glass of water he was holding fell to the floor, shattering. He slowly crouched down, looking at the broken pieces, and suddenly started to laugh. So that's what he had been all these years, just a free driver. But it didn't matter. This driver was about to be decommissioned. From now on, they could have their beloved dad take care of them. A week later, the housekeeper brought Leo and Mia back to the penthouse. The moment they walked in, they ran straight to the kitchen, their faces alight with unconcealed glee. "Dad," Mia shouted shrilly. "You know what? Uncle Julian sprained his ankle at the parent-child sports day, and Mom was so worried." Leo eagerly added, "Mom booked an entire hospital wing for Uncle Julian's treatment. She even postponed her board meetings to stay by his side." Cole stood in front of the oven, listening quietly to their boasting, his hands steadily putting on oven mitts. "Dad, are you even listening?" Mia stomped her foot impatiently. "Mom is so nice to Uncle Julian, way better than she is to." A ding from the oven cut her off. The sweet aroma of cake instantly filled the kitchen. The children's eyes lit up, and they rushed over. "It's a cake." Leo stood on his tiptoes. "I want some." Cole took out the baking pan. The edges of the cake were slightly burnt. He frowned and scraped the entire thing into the trash can. "Ah!" Mia shrieked. "Why did you throw it away?" "It's burnt. You can't eat it," Cole said calmly. "You're lying." Leo kicked the trash can in a rage. "You did it on purpose. You're still mad at us about what happened, so you don't want to give us any." "Bad dad." Mia's face turned beet red. "We don't have a father like you." Cole took off the oven mitts, his heart feeling that familiar crushing grip. He looked at the two children he had given his life to raise, and suddenly felt like he was looking at strangers. "Good," he said softly, "because I don't have children like you either. From now on, go find Julian." With that, he turned and walked toward the stairs. Behind him, he heard the children's hysterical screams. "We hate you. We'll hate you forever." Cole's steps faltered for a second, but he didn't turn back. Just as his foot landed on the third step, a sudden, violent shove hit his back. "Go to hell." A sharp pain shot through his body. Warm liquid trickled down from his forehead, blurring his vision. The two children stood at the top of the stairs, their faces twisted in malicious glee. "Serves you right." Mia clapped. That's what you get for not giving us cake. Leo jeered. Cole struggled to push himself up, blood dripping from his chin onto the polished floor. He looked at the two little demons before him and couldn't reconcile them with the fragile children he had fought tooth and nail to save when they were sick in the hospital. The front door suddenly swung open. "What's going on?" Summer's low voice echoed through the hall. Julian followed behind her. All three of them froze at the scene. "Mommy!" The children's faces instantly changed. They ran to her, crying. "Daddy threw the cake away and wouldn't let us eat it. And he said he doesn't want us anymore." "Boo-hoo." Summer's gaze fell on the discarded cake in the trash, then shifted to the blood-covered Cole. Her brow furrowed. "Cole, why do you have to pick fights with two children?" Her voice was as cold as ice. "Saying things like that to your own flesh and blood? Do you deserve to be a father?" Cole pushed himself up against the wall, blood staining the collar of his shirt. He looked at Summer and suddenly laughed. "In your eyes, when have I ever deserved anything?" His voice was hoarse. "Haven't you always just seen me as a tool to take care of the kids?" Summer's pupils constricted. "Since the husband you want is Julian," Cole said, wiping the blood from his face, "and the kids only want him as their father, then I'll step down. I'll make your happy family of four complete." The air crackled with tension. Summer's face turned ugly. She stared at Cole, as if truly seeing him for the first time. "Cole, don't forget," her voice was low and frigid, "our families arranged this marriage for business. There were never any feelings involved. What did you want from me?" "Love." She let out a cold laugh. "Sorry, I can't give you that." Cole laughed at her words, but as he laughed, tears streamed down his face. Yes, she was right. He was the fool. He was the idiot who thought he could bring a goddess down from a pedestal. Summer had indeed been brought down, but it wasn't by him. He should have known that all along. "Summer, come on." Julian stepped in at the right moment, taking her arm. "The children are frightened. Let's take them upstairs first." Summer gave Cole one last, deep look before finally turning away. She picked up a child in each arm and left with Julian. Cole watched them go, blood still dripping from his wounds. He was filled with a profound regret. Regret for marrying Summer. Regret for having those two children. This time, he would not make the same mistakes. From this day forward, he would live only for himself. 3 days later was Leo's birthday. The party was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city. Crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant glow, and a champagne tower sparkled in the center of the ballroom. As always, Summer had booked the entire floor for Leo's lavish celebration. Cole stood in a corner, watching Leo and Mia hold Julian's hands, fluttering around him like two happy little birds. The children clung to Julian the entire time, deliberately ignoring their real father. Summer stood nearby, a champagne flute in her slender fingers, her gaze frequently drifting to Julian, her eyes filled with a tenderness he had never received. Mrs. Sterling is so devoted. After all these years, she still only has eyes for Mr. Vance. Isn't it the truth? And the kids are just like her, only have eyes for Uncle Julian. Summer, Julian, and I were all in college together. Back then, when Summer and Julian were a couple, it was the stuff of legends. A man in a sharp suit whispered. They were this close to getting engaged right after graduation. "No wonder," someone else exclaimed in realization. "A first love is a first love. Even without the title of husband, he'll always be the most important one." Some people try to force their way in, but what's the point? Another guest sneered, glancing disdainfully at Cole. So what if he has kids? He still can't win his wife's heart. I bet he's destined to die alone. Cole listened quietly, his heart encased in a thick layer of ice. The dull ache now gone, replaced by numbness. He took a deep breath and turned toward the elevators. Just as the doors were about to close, a hand shot in. Julian stepped inside, a smirk playing on his lips. "The divorce will be final in 3 days," he said, looking Cole straight in the eye. "You'll honor our agreement and leave, won't you?" Cole pressed the button for the ground floor. "Of course." A pause. "I want to leave more than anyone." A satisfied smile finally spread across Julian's face. "Don't worry. I'll take good care of the family for you. Besides, Summer and the kids don't like you anyway. They'll forget you soon enough." The elevator descended smoothly. Cole didn't answer. Suddenly, boom. A deafening crash, a violent jolt, and the elevator plunged into darkness. "Ah!" Julian screamed, fumbling for his phone. "Summer, help. The elevator's broken." Cole was thrown against the wall. A sharp pain exploded in his forehead, and warm liquid streamed down his face. He didn't know how much time passed before he heard the frantic sound of footsteps outside. "Is anyone in there okay?" A rescuer's voice called through the door. "Help us." Julian pounded on the metal. "My leg is stuck." The piercing shriek of metal being pried apart filled the air, and a blinding beam of light cut through the darkness. A rescuer peered in, his face grim. "Mrs. Sterling, both men have their legs pinned by the warped door. Time is critical. We can only rescue one at a time. Who should we save first?" Through his blurry vision, Cole saw Summer standing behind the rescuer with the two children. Her gaze fell on Julian, and without a moment's hesitation, she said, "Save Julian. Save Uncle Julian first." Leo and Mia cried, tugging on the rescuer's sleeve. "Hurry, save him." "Ma'am, Mr. and Miss Sterling, the other gentleman is more severely injured. We strongly advise rescuing him first." "I said save Julian." Summer's voice was as cold and hard as steel. The rescuer sighed, and had no choice but to reach for Julian. Cole watched as they carefully pulled Julian out. The elevator door, now missing half its support, let out a terrifying groan. Crash! The twisted metal slammed down on his leg. A searing, bone-deep pain ripped through him. The last thing he saw was Summer supporting Julian as they walked away, and the two children cheering behind them. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils, accompanied by the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. "You're awake." A doctor came over to check his pupils. "You have 3 broken ribs. It's a good thing you were brought in when you were, or you might not have made it." Cole stared blankly at the ceiling, the final moments before the elevator fell replaying in his mind. Summer's unhesitating choice to save Julian. The way she hadn't even glanced back as the twisted metal door crashed down on him. He tried to move, and a sharp pain immediately shot from his chest through his entire body. But strangely, not a single tear fell. Perhaps the pain was so extreme that even his heart had gone numb. 3 days later, Summer came to pick him up from the hospital. She stood at the door, impeccably dressed in a power suit. Her gaze fell on his bandaged chest, and she remained silent for a long moment before finally speaking. "Julian still has to play the piano. I couldn't let anything happen to his hands." Cole slowly lifted his head and looked at her. "So you had to be the one to make the sacrifice?" Her tone was matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing a minor inconvenience. "You're a stay-at-home dad. Even if your mobility is affected, it won't have a major impact." Cole said nothing, but for the first time, he saw the woman he had loved for half his life with crystal clarity. Her features were still as elegant as a goddess's, but in her eyes, there had never been a reflection of him. "Summer," he said, his voice hoarse, "if I had died that day, would you have cared?" Summer's brow tightened, and she didn't answer. She pulled a black credit card from her suit pocket and placed it on the bedside table. "Don't ask such meaningless questions. This is for compensation. As long as you behave yourself and raise the children, you will always be my husband." Cole suddenly laughed. In his last life, he had died with the title of her husband. But what did it matter? He was the one who grew old alone, the one who was forgotten, the one who burned in the fire. So in this life, he had no desire to be her husband anymore. He would live a better, more brilliant life. He would find someone who truly loved him. He couldn't hold it in any longer. The words were about to burst out. He was done with her. "Summer." A phone rang, cutting him off. Summer answered it. Julian's gentle voice came through the receiver. "Summer, the kids and I are waiting for you at the restaurant. We have a surprise." Her expression softened instantly. "I'll be right there." Hanging up, Summer glanced at her watch, her tone turning cold again. "I have to go. The driver is waiting for you downstairs." As her slender back disappeared through the doorway, Cole's fingers dug into his palm. He held his tongue. It didn't matter. She would soon find out from Julian that the divorce was final. He didn't want her anymore, and he didn't want the two children who treated him like a stranger either. "Sarah." Cole pressed the call button for the nurse. "Could you help me get my bags to the airport?" An hour later, he had deleted all of Summer's contact information and left a black card in the hospital room drawer. As the plane took off, the clouds outside the window were painted a brilliant gold and red by the setting sun. Cole looked out at the magnificent sky and closed his eyes with a small smile. In this life, he would never again sacrifice himself for anyone. Let those days of groveling for love disappear forever with this plane high above the clouds. Ahead of him lay a new future, one that belonged only to him. He spent 2 weeks carefully scouting locations before opening an old bookstore named Cole's on a quiet street in a sleepy part of town. The shop was small, but it had wonderful natural light. He spent 3 months renovating it, transforming the once dilapidated space into a cozy reading haven. Portland's rainy season was long. Cole stood at the glass door of his bookstore, staring blankly at the drizzling rain outside. The wind chime above the door suddenly tinkled. "Welcome," he said automatically, turning. He froze when he saw the person who had entered. The woman standing at the door was slender, holding a long-handled black umbrella, as raindrops dripped from its edge onto the floor. She was holding a little girl of about 5 or 6, who was shyly burrowing into her side. "Excuse me, do you have any picture books for this age group?" the woman asked, closing her umbrella. Her voice was gentle. Cole finally got a clear look at her face, strong-boned with beautifully drawn eyes and brows. Her long hair was casually draped over her shoulders, and her eyes held a soft, smiling light. He was stunned. "Evelyn Reed." The woman was clearly taken aback as well. She studied him for a moment before recognition dawned. Cole Anderson? Memories flooded back. Evelyn Reed, a legend at their university's medical school, 2 years ahead of him. Back then, she was famous not just for her top grades, but also for being a brilliant pianist. She had been the dream girl for countless guys on campus. "What a coincidence," he smiled, gesturing to the little girl in her arms. "Is this my niece, Cece?" Evelyn said gently, patting the girl's back. "Cece, say hi to Cole." The little girl lifted her head, revealing a cherubic face. She shyly whispered, "Hi, Cole," her voice as soft as cotton candy. Cole's heart melted. He crouched down to her level. "Hi there, Cece. What kind of book are you looking for? Want me to help you find one?" Cece blinked her big eyes, and then reached out a tiny hand, gently touching Cole's cheek. "You're handsome," she said in a tiny voice. "You look like my daddy." The air went still. Evelyn's expression shifted, and she knelt, pulling Cece closer. "I'm sorry, her father, he passed away from an illness a few years ago." A pang hit Cole's chest. He looked at this little girl who had lost her father, and thought of Leo and Mia. They still had Julian. This child had no one. "It's okay," he said softly, reaching out to gently stroke Cece's hair. "Cece, do you like fairy tales? I have a lot of beautiful picture books right here." Cece nodded, her eyes lighting up. For the next half hour, Cole patiently showed Cece various picture books. The little girl gradually relaxed, even taking his hand and asking him to read to her. Evelyn stood nearby, watching them with a gentle look in her eyes. By the time Cole was reading The Little Prince, Cece was leaning against him, completely captivated. "You have a special way of telling stories," Evelyn said softly as she paid. "Cece is usually very shy, but she warmed up to you so quickly." Cole smiled, handing the wrapped book to Cece. "I felt a connection with Cece too. I wish she were my daughter." He regretted the words as soon as they left his mouth, but Evelyn just nodded thoughtfully, without asking more. "Can we come back again?" Cece asked as they were leaving, tugging on his shirt. Cole knelt down and gently pinched her little nose. "Of course you can. I'll always be happy to see you." Evelyn opened her umbrella and walked into the rain with Cece in her arms. Cece, draped over her shoulder, kept waving at the bookstore until they disappeared around the corner. Cole stood at the door, watching their silhouettes vanish into the rain, a long-forgotten warmth spreading through his heart. Almost every weekend, they would come to the shop and stay for an hour or two. Cece would sit quietly on the little sofa in the corner, engrossed in a picture book, while Evelyn would pick out a medical journal and read peacefully beside her. Sometimes Cole would make them a pot of herbal tea. Evelyn would always thank him politely, and Cece would chirp, "Thank you, Mr. Cole," before burying her nose back in her book. One sunny Saturday, Evelyn suggested a trip to the amusement park. "You should come with us," she said, her eyes curving into crescents in a sincere invitation. "Cece has been talking about wanting to go with you." Cole had been about to refuse, but his heart softened at Cece's hopeful expression. The amusement park was a cacophony of sound. Cece held Evelyn's hand with her left and Cole's with her right, skipping excitedly from one place to another. They rode the carousel, played in the bumper cars, and even waited in line for the Ferris wheel. When the Ferris wheel reached its highest point, Cece suddenly pointed to the clouds in the distance. Daddy lives up there. Cole's heart tightened. Evelyn gently pulled Cece into her arms. Daddy is watching over Cece from heaven, she said softly. He wants Cece to be happy every single day. Cece nodded, then turned to Cole. Cole, can you be my new daddy? The air froze. Cole didn't know how to respond. Evelyn quickly tried to smooth things over. Cece, don't be silly. I'm not being silly. Cece's face flushed. I like Cole and Cole likes Cece, right? Cole looked at the little girl's determined expression and was suddenly reminded of Leo. He was the same way, stubbornly insisting on something once he'd made up his mind. Of course I like Cece, he said gently. But a daddy is one of a kind. No one can ever replace him. Cece nodded, seemingly understanding, and leaned back against Evelyn. On the way home, Cece fell asleep in the back seat. Evelyn was driving, occasionally glancing at Cole in the rearview mirror. Thank you for spending the day with her, she said quietly. She hasn't been this happy in a long time. Cole shook his head. I was happy too. Outside the car window, the sunset painted the clouds in brilliant shades of gold and red. Cole instinctively raised a hand to block the light, and his sleeve slid down, revealing a long scar on his wrist. Evelyn's gaze lingered on the scar for a fraction of a second before she quickly looked away. But for the rest of the drive, a small frown creased her brow. A week later, Evelyn came to the bookstore alone, carrying a thermos. I made this myself. It's a calming tea, she said, handing the thermos to him. It might help with your sleep. Cole was taken aback. How did you know I have trouble sleeping? Though he had left that life behind, the past haunted him, waking him from nightmares countless nights. Evelyn pushed up her glasses, her eyes warm and perceptive. You forget, I'm a doctor. You know, you can always come to me for help. I think we can consider ourselves good friends now, right? Cole instinctively pulled his sleeve down, covering his wrist. Sorry, I shouldn't have pried, Evelyn said quickly. It's just, as a doctor and as a friend, I hope you'll take care of yourself. Cole was silent for a moment before finally breaking into a smile, his eyes crinkling. I will. Thank you for the tea. And if I ever do need help, I promise I'll ask. After that, Evelyn came by more often, sometimes with Cece, sometimes alone. Each time she would bring little things, a bouquet of wildflowers, a box of homemade cookies, or a new blend of calming tea. Cole gradually grew accustomed to their company. Sometimes, watching Evelyn and Cece reading in the store, he would have a fleeting thought that this was the life he had always yearned for. Simple, peaceful, and full of warmth. One rainy night, as Cole was organizing the shelves, the doorbell rang. Evelyn stood outside, soaked to the bone, holding a feverish Cece in her arms. I'm so sorry to bother you this late, her voice trembled. Cece kept crying for you. She said she could only fall asleep if you told her a story. Cole quickly ushered them in. He took the feverish child, his heart aching as he looked at her flushed little face. He gently patted her back. It's okay, Cece. I'm here. Don't be scared. That night, Cole stayed by Cece's bedside, softly telling her stories. Evelyn sat nearby, watching them with a gentle expression. By the time Cece finally fell asleep, the rain outside had stopped. Moonlight streamed through a gap in the curtains, casting a silver ribbon of light on the floor. Thank you, Evelyn whispered. Cole shook his head. As he tried to stand, his legs numb from sitting so long gave way, and he stumbled. Evelyn reacted instantly, catching him. As he steadied himself, he realized how close they were. Both of them blushed and looked away, a comfortable silence filling the room. She had assumed Cole was just playing some childish game of hard to get. It was only when she realized she couldn't reach him, no matter how she tried, that she began to take it seriously. But calls to his old friends all came up empty. No one had seen him. Annoyed, she hung up, went to her study, and pulled up Cole's bank account information on her computer. The screen showed that the balance on the black card she had given him remained at zero. He had left with only his personal savings, not touching a single cent of sterling money. Huh. So he has a spine after all, she sneered, closing the laptop. Did he really think this childish stunt would make them come crawling back to him? It would never work. The next morning at breakfast, Leo and Mia were chattering about school, while Julian gently served them food, occasionally looking up to smile at Summer. The scene was picturesque, a perfect family portrait, but for some reason, Summer felt like something was missing. Mom, The school's parent-child sports day is next week. Can you and Uncle Julian come? Mia asked, batting her eyelashes. Of course, Summer answered automatically, then paused. Who used to go with you? Was it your dad? Both children made faces of disgust. It was him, but we didn't want him to come. Leo pouted, his expression cold. All he ever did was stay at home cooking and cleaning. He never even wanted to go out. He looked so sloppy, we didn't want him there. Exactly, Mia agreed. Uncle Julian always dresses so sharp and handsome. All our friends are jealous of us. Julian gave a modest smile and poured Summer a cup of coffee. Summer, try this. I had the maid make it just how you like it. Summer took a sip, and her brow furrowed slightly. It was too sweet. Cole had always ground her coffee by hand. He never made mistakes like this. He remembered she took her coffee with a splash of milk, no sugar. What's wrong? Not to your liking. Julian asked with concern. It's fine. She put the cup down, saying nothing more. She smoothed her cuff. I'm heading to the office. In the days that followed, life at the Sterling penthouse appeared normal on the surface, but subtle changes were brewing. Julian, having never done a household chore in his life, quickly gave up after a few attempts and delegated everything to the staff. While the house still functioned, only Summer and the kids could feel that something essential had changed. There were no more soft, perfectly ironed clothes waiting for them. The nightly glass of warm milk. The breakfast tailored to each of their preferences. All of it was gone. Life went on, but the familiar, comforting warmth of their home had vanished. One evening, Summer returned late from a business gala. She stumbled to the sofa and waved her assistant away. You can go. I'm fine from here. The door clicked shut, plunging the room into silence. Summer wearily rubbed her temples and called out instinctively, "Honey." The word hung in the empty air. She suddenly realized how different things were. The small lamp wasn't left on for her. There was no steaming cup of anti-hangover tea waiting on the coffee table. Maria, I told you I had a function tonight. Why wasn't anything prepared? She snapped into the intercom, connecting to the staff quarters. A moment later, Maria, the head housekeeper, hurried into the living room, flustered. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Sterling. In the past, Mr. Anderson always prepared everything for you himself when you came home late. That's why we forgot. And the tea you mentioned, Mr. Anderson always bought the ingredients himself and simmered it in the kitchen for hours. He never let us help. If you'd like some, I can go see if I can figure out how to make it now. Summer felt as if something had struck her in the chest. A strange emotion began to bloom. So all those things, he had prepared them all himself. She had known in a distant way that he was dedicated to the family, but she had never felt it so clearly, this sharp pang of regret, this feeling that she owed him something. Maria stood by, hands clasped, not daring to breathe. So for 6 years, he did all of this silently and never said a word. Summer's voice was hoarse. Maria nodded cautiously. Mr. Anderson never let us interfere. He said you have a sensitive stomach, and the store-bought remedies were too harsh. He had to watch the brew himself. Summer's fingers drummed unconsciously on the tabletop. For 6 years, every single time she came home from a work event, no matter how late, there had always been a warm bowl of that tea waiting. She had never once considered it was the result of Cole staying up until the dead of night. Ma'am, should I try to? The housekeeper asked tentatively. Don't bother. Summer turned and walked toward the stairs. Everyone go to bed. As she passed the master bedroom, she heard Julian's even breathing from within. He rolled over in his sleep, the silk sheets rustling softly. Summer stood at the door, and for some reason, her mind drifted to Cole. In the early days, she couldn't stand the sight of her so-called arranged husband, so she'd make up excuses to stay out, often not coming home at all. But no matter when she returned, she would find him in the living room, quietly waiting for her. Cole was always a light sleeper. The slightest noise would wake him. Sometimes she'd come home in the middle of the night to find him curled up on the sofa, fast asleep, the TV still on with the volume at its lowest setting. Back then, she disliked him so intensely that she wouldn't have given him a second glance before heading to her own room. But he had done that for years. It wasn't until later that she started to pause for him, even occasionally covering him with a blanket. When had that all changed? It was after Julian came back. She was so often busy helping Julian with his various affairs that she started coming home less and less. One time, Julian mentioned he wanted to see the children, so she brought them along. It seemed that from then on, Their contact with Julian increased, to the point where they spent most of their time with him. Cole had protested. He confronted her angrily. "You're my wife. Leo and Mia are my children. Why are we spending every day fawning over someone else?" He had paused, the words seeming to catch in his throat, his eyes red. "When you're like this, I can't even tell who you consider your husband or their father." But at the time, her mind was completely consumed with the newly returned Julian. His questions just seemed unreasonable. She had answered coldly, "Have you forgotten? If you hadn't interfered, Julian would have been master of this house." Cole had frozen, the look of utter devastation in his eyes giving her a slight pang of guilt. But Julian was the man she truly loved, so she had ignored the motionless Cole and turned away without hesitation. After that, Cole never brought it up again, as if the conversation had never happened. She had been satisfied, thinking he had learned his place. Thinking of this, she found herself pushing open the door to the children's room. Leo and Mia were sound asleep, their little heads close together. On the nightstand, a photo of them with Julian sat in a frame, all of them smiling brightly. The frame that once held a photo of Cole was now empty. Looking at that empty space, she felt a strange hollowness in her own chest. She didn't return to the master bedroom. Instead, she went to the guest room. Outside, the cold moonlight streamed in. Summer took a bottle of whiskey from the bar and drank straight from it. The fiery liquid burned her throat, but couldn't extinguish the unsettling agitation in her heart. She was often away from home, and Julian was more than happy to have his freedom, spending his days either at the gym or at the salon. With no one to take them to and from school, and with Julian having previously spoiled them by letting them skip school for fun outings, Leo and Mia began to follow his example. They started skipping class, hiding out all day. When Julian found out, he didn't care at all. "Mr. Vance, the young master and young miss have been skipping school frequently. The teacher has already called the house, hoping you and Mrs. Sterling could get more involved. They don't listen to the staff, sir. Do you think you could come home and talk to them? At least get them to go back to school." "Yes, I've got it. I'll handle it later," Julian said lazily, reclining on the sofa and admiring his freshly styled hair. "There's no need to tell Summer about this. She's busy enough with work. I don't want her to worry." After hanging up, a friend lounging nearby teased him. "No way. You're actually going to parent those two brats? I mean, marrying a rich woman is great, but having these two left over must be a pain. Who said I was going to parent them?" Julian yawned, his eyes glinting with cunning. "I'm hoping they turn into little monsters. That way, they won't be competing with my future children for the inheritance." He then dialed the number for Leo and Mia's homeroom teacher. "Hello, teacher. Our children have some family matters to attend to recently. You don't need to worry about them not being in school. You know our family situation. They don't need to be too concerned with academics. Also, their mother is very busy. If anything comes up, please contact me directly. Don't bother her with it." Hanging up, he felt a wave of relief and quickly forgot the matter. That evening, after a gym session, he made a rare appearance at home. The living room was a mess, courtesy of the two children. Seeing him, they ran over joyfully. "Uncle Julian, you're finally back. We miss you so much." But to their surprise, Julian, who was usually all warm smiles, looked at them with an expression of pure annoyance. He brushed them off impatiently. I know. I have things to do. Go play by yourselves." Leo, still expecting the affectionate treatment he was used to, angrily threw a toy on the floor. "No, Uncle Julian, play with us." At his words, Julian's expression turned terrifying. The eyes that were once so gentle were now completely devoid of warmth. "What did you say? Who do you think you're yelling at? Don't you know that I'm about to marry your mother and become the new master of this house? Your mother doesn't even like your useless father, and before long she'll be tired of you too." The children huddled together in fear, not daring to even breathe, all their previous arrogance toward Cole completely gone. "Good, as long as you understand. Remember, from now on, you do what I say in this house. If you yell at me again, don't blame me for what happens." With a final warning glare, he turned and went upstairs, leaving the two terrified children behind. Not only was there no one to take them to school, but gradually, no one even bothered to prepare proper meals for them. They were left to pick at the scraps after Julian had finished eating. The sweltering New York summer sun beat down, and the air conditioning in the Sterling penthouse hummed. Leo and Mia were on the floor of the playroom, building with Legos, occasionally stealing glances at Julian, who was adjusting his tie in front of a mirror. Uncle Julian, Mia began timidly. Can we get ice cream? You promised. Last week, when their mom had bought Julian a new watch, he had been in a good mood and had casually joked with the two children on the floor, promising to take them for ice cream. But Julian didn't even turn around. Can't you see I'm busy? He snapped. But Leo summoned his courage. You said last week you'd take us. Are you always this annoying? Julian whipped around, the tie crumbling in his fist. All you ever think about is eating. Look at you. You're nothing but skin and bones. The two children shrank back in fear. Since their father had left, they hadn't felt a single ounce of Uncle Julian's affection. His once kind and gentle smile was gone, replaced by a permanent scowl and sharp rebukes. Get back to your room, Julian ordered, wiping his fingers with a tissue. The sight of you makes me sick. Tears welled up in Mia's eyes, but she didn't dare let them fall. The last time she cried, Uncle Julian had pinched her thigh hard and threatened to throw away all her favorite toys. That day, Summer sent a rare message that she would be home for the night. When she arrived, the children were already asleep. Julian, wearing a silk robe, greeted her, smelling faintly of expensive aftershave, his meticulously cared-for skin glowing. Finally done with work? Decided to grace us with your presence? He asked softly, taking her briefcase. There was an issue with the merger. It should be settled soon, and I'll be home more, Summer said, taking off her jacket. She looked around. Where are the kids? I feel like I haven't seen them in ages. They're asleep. Don't worry, I've been taking great care of them, Julian said, wrapping an arm around her waist. He added casually, Summer, there's a charity gala tomorrow, and I'm missing a watch to go with my suit. Could I possibly? Summer, distracted, nodded before he even finished. Go pick one out yourself. Just use my black card. The next morning at breakfast, she finally saw the children. But to her confusion, Leo and Mia were unerringly silent. Looking closer, she noticed they seemed thinner, their chins sharper. Summer put down her coffee cup, frowning. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? No, nothing. Leo stammered, shaking his head frantically. His hand trembled, the spoon clattering against the bowl. Julian emerged from the kitchen with a fruit platter. He glanced at them and chuckled softly. Summer, don't worry, the kids are fine. He bent down and affectionately ruffled Leo's hair, his voice dripping with false tenderness. Right, Leo? Leo flinched, then mumbled, yes. Summer's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and stood up. Office emergency. I have to go. The moment the door closed, Julian's smile vanished. He snatched the glass of milk from Mia's hand, his face a mask of impatience. Are you trying to be late? Hurry up and eat. Your mother is back for a few days, so you'd better go to school and stay out of trouble. Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens. The threat worked. Mia flinched and started stuffing bread in her mouth, but she choked, her face turning red. Useless thing. Julian scowled in disgust, not giving her a second look. Pathetic, just like your father. Sir, the young master has a fever, 103 degrees. We were worried something serious might happen. Summer's brow furrowed. Did you call a doctor? We did, but Mr. Vance said not to worry. He went out to a party. What? Summer's expression changed, her voice sharp with surprise. I'm on my way back. Have the family doctor come over immediately. When she rushed home through the rain, she found Leo flushed and shivering, his small body trembling uncontrollably. The family doctor was administering in 4, his face grim. Why is it this severe, Mrs. Sterling? The child has had a high fever for 4 hours. Any later, and it could have developed into pneumonia. The doctor said in a low, serious tone, his constitution is already weak. He should have been treated much earlier. A tightness gripped Summer's chest. She remembered when Cole was around. He could detect the slightest sign of illness in the children. He often didn't even need a thermometer to accurately gauge their fever. Where is Julian? Why haven't I seen him? The housekeeper hesitated before finally saying, Mr. Vance said. He said it was just a small cold. He went to Mr. Wong's birthday party and couldn't get out of it. Summer pulled out her phone and dialed Julian's number. It rang for a long time before he answered, the background filled with the clamor of laughter and music. Summer. Julian's voice was tinged with tipsy amusement, as if he hadn't a care in the world. Leo's fever is almost 104. Where are you? Oh, I'm on my way back now. It was the first time Summer had ever used that tone with him, and Julian's voice immediately turned panicked and defensive. I'm so sorry, Summer. I really thought it was just a regular cold. I'm rushing back right now. An hour later, Julian hurried in, still wearing his party suit, his face a mask of perfect contrition. He walked up to Summer, his eyes red-rimmed. Summer, I honestly had no idea Leo was this sick. Summer looked at his flawless makeup and the lingering scent of alcohol on him, a wave of irritation washing over her. But faced with the man she had yearned for so long, she softened. Just let it go this time. Be more careful in the future. Late that night, Leo's fever finally began to break. Summer's phone rang again. It was an urgent call from her assistant. Mrs. Sterling, there's an emergency at the office. We need you to handle it immediately. Summer glanced at her sleeping son, then hesitated. Julian, can you watch him for a bit? I'll be back as soon as I'm done. Julian nodded obediently, his expression unchanged. Of course, I'll take good care of Leo. Summer left in a hurry, but when she reached the hospital entrance, she realized she'd left her car keys in the room. As she walked back, just outside the door, she heard Julian's low, menacing voice. You little brat, stop faking it. You made me miss the whole party. Leo's tearful voice was faint. I'm sorry, Uncle Julian. I didn't mean to. I'm warning you, don't you dare play the victim in front of your mother. Julian's voice was terrifyingly cold, devoid of any sympathy. If you say one wrong word, you'll see what I do to you. I won't say anything, Leo sobbed. I'll be good, please don't hit me. You'd better. You're just like your worthless, pathetic father. Standing outside the door, Summer's world tilted. The image of the kind, loving man she thought she knew shattered into a million pieces. The door was kicked open with a tremendous bang. Julian spun around in terror, meeting Summer's furious gaze. Summer. His face went white. He scrambled for words. Listen to me, I was just. But Summer was already on him, a sharp slap cracking across his face. Julian stumbled back against the wall, his perfect curls falling into disarray. I had no idea this is how you played the good father behind my back. Today you hit him, you threaten him. Tomorrow, will you try to walk all over me? Get out. Summer's voice was glacial. Today, take all of your things and get out of my house. Don't let me see you again. Julian scrambled up from the floor. Summer, I was just worried. I really do love the children. I'll be better to them, I promise. Love. Summer sneered. Beating and threatening them is your idea of love. She turned to Leo, who had shrunk into a ball on the bed, his face streaked with tears. Her heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. How could she have been so blind? Mommy. Leo timidly reached out, his eyes wide with terror. I was wrong. I'll listen to Uncle Julian. Just please don't get rid of me. Summer knelt by the bed, gripping her son's hot little hand. No, it's Mommy who was wrong. She turned back to Julian, the disappointment and disgust in her eyes making him shrink back. I never imagined you were this kind of person. Julian tried to argue, but Summer had already pressed the call button. Security, please escort this gentleman out immediately. As Julian's protests faded down the hallway, Summer sank wearily onto the edge of the bed. Leo cautiously tugged her sleeve, sobbing pitifully. Mommy, I miss Daddy. Can we bring Daddy back? A lump formed in Summer's throat. She thought of Cole's resolute back as he left, of her own coldness and cruelty toward him, and a dull ache spread through her chest. Mommy, Mia, who had woken up, rubbed her eyes and came over. I miss Daddy too. When is Daddy coming back? Summer pulled both children into her arms, at a loss for how to comfort them, a bitter taste filling her mouth. In the living room of the Sterling penthouse, Julian's belongings were piled high. He stood on the marble floor, desperately clutching Summer's sleeve, his manicured nails digging into her skin. Summer, you can't do this to me, he cried, his eyes filled with endless regret. We've known each other for 20 years. Are you really going to throw it all away over this little thing? Little thing. Summer ripped her arm away, her eyes like shards of ice. Abusing my children is a little thing? She pulled out her phone and played a security video. On the screen, Julian was viciously pinching Mia's thigh, the little girl crying silently, too scared to make a sound. And this, she swiped to another video. This one showing Julian secretly putting sleeping pills into the children's milk. I can't believe it. To get them to sleep so you could go to a party, you actually drug them. Julian's face turned ashen. You were spying on me. You never trusted me, did you? I was monitoring my own home. Summer's voice was low and dangerous. Just then, one of the maids rushed forward. Ma'am, I have something to say. She pointed a trembling finger at Julian, her eyes filled with undisguised disgust. From the very first day he came here, he's been turning the children against Mr. Anderson. You're lying, Julian shrieked. I'm not, the maid said, emboldened. He would always buy them snacks and toys when Mr. Anderson wasn't around, and teach them to say bad things about him. I personally heard him tell the young master, your dad doesn't let you have candy because he doesn't love you. He also said that only if they found a way to drive their dad away could he and you truly be together. That's why, the very next day, the young master pushed Mr. Anderson down the stairs with his own hands. Summer's face grew darker with every word. She turned to the head housekeeper. Pull up the security footage from that day. When the video played on the large screen, the entire living room fell silent. On screen, the two children, their faces alight with malicious glee, shoved Cole down the stairs. Moments later, Julian, following Summer into the house, saw the scene, a flash of triumphant pleasure unconcealed on his face. Mommy! Mia suddenly ran down the stairs and threw herself into Summer's arms, sobbing. We were wrong. We want Daddy to come back. Leo followed, his face streaked with tears. Uncle Julian said Dad doesn't want us anymore. Is that true? Julian let out a cold laugh. Of course it's true. He's already abandoned you. And right now he's probably off with some other woman, Summer. You don't even know, do you? What you signed that day wasn't for a condo. It was the divorce papers Cole gave you himself. You two have no legal connection anymore. You're the one who drove him away. Slap. Another resounding slap cut off his vicious words. Summer's hand hung in the air, her eyes burning with a rage he had never seen before. Throw all of his things out, she ordered the housekeeper. And everything I bought him. He's not to take a single item. Julian clutched his cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. Summer, are you crazy for that washed-up old man? Shut up. Summer's voice was a whip crack. Say one more word, and I'll make sure you can never work in this city again. His limited edition action figures, designer clothes, and luxury watches were scattered on the floor like a pile of expensive garbage. You'll regret this. Julian screamed from the doorway. You think Cole will take you back? He's had enough of you. The heavy door slammed shut in his face, cutting off the ugly curses. The living room was suddenly terrifyingly quiet. Summer slowly sank to the floor, pulling her two children into her arms. Their bodies trembled, and their tears soaked her suit jacket. Mommy, does Daddy really not want us anymore? Mia sobbed. A lump formed in Summer's throat. She remembered Cole's resolute back as he walked away, and the divorce paper she had signed with her own hand. A dull ache spread through her chest. No, he doesn't, she said softly, her words more an attempt to convince herself than them. Her brow was deeply furrowed. Daddy loves you so much, he would never be able to leave you. He's probably just taking some time for himself. Then why hasn't he come back? Leo lifted his tear-filled eyes, his small face clouded with gloom. Is it because we pushed him down the stairs? Summer couldn't manage a smile. She could only wipe away his tears. Mommy will find Daddy. Once the housekeeper had taken the children upstairs, Summer finally allowed herself to collapse onto the sofa. She pulled out her phone and called her assistant. Find Cole Anderson's whereabouts immediately. After hanging up, Summer's gaze fell on the family portrait above the fireplace. It was taken 3 years ago. Cole stood at the very edge, his smile strained. At the time, she hadn't even looked at him, too busy focusing on the children, never noticing his expression. Looking back now, she realized it was her constant neglect that had finally made him give up on them. Ma'am, the housekeeper's voice gently interrupted her thoughts. Dinner is ready. Shall I call the young master and Miss Down? Summer nodded, her brow still creased. I'll eat with them tonight. In the dining room, Leo and Mia ate listlessly, the usual chatter replaced by a heavy silence. The two children, once plump and rosy-cheeked, now looked thin and pale, their chins sharp. Mommy, Mia asked in a small voice, all her former arrogance gone. I miss Daddy. Where'd he go? Why has he been gone for so long? When you find Daddy, Will he forgive us? Summer's hand paused midair. She finally nodded, her voice firm. No matter what, he's your father. He used to love you more than anything. Of course, he'll forgive you. Late that night, Summer stood alone in her study, reviewing the security footage from the past 6 months. On the screen, Cole was always quietly doing housework, taking care of the children, waiting for her to come home. He rarely smiled, but whenever the children needed him, he was there in an instant. Until that day, the day the children pushed him down the stairs, and she didn't even look back. Summer closed the laptop, a heavy feeling settling in her chest. When she found Cole, she would make it up to him. She would treat him right. The photos her assistant had just delivered were scattered across the desk, each one a knife in her eye. Are you sure, Tim? Her voice was dangerously low. Absolutely certain, the assistant said, wiping sweat from his brow. Mr. Anderson opened a bookstore in Portland. These photos were taken last week. In the photos, Cole stood in front of a bookstore named Cole's. Sunlight filtered through the leaves of a plane tree, casting dappled shadows on him. He was wearing a simple linen shirt, his hair shorter than when he left, and he was bent over, speaking to a little girl of 5 or 6. His expression held a gentleness she hadn't seen in a very long time. But the most glaring detail was the woman standing next to him, slender, her tender gaze fixed on Cole. He was holding the little girl in his arms, and the three of them together looked disturbingly like a happy family. Who was the woman standing next to him? Summer's thumb pressed down hard on the photo, smudging the woman's face. That appears to be Dr. Evelyn Reed, a senior of his from college. The little girl is her late sister's child. They were only acquaintances in college. It seems they met again by chance in Portland. However, Mr. Anderson seems to be very fond of the little girl. He often spends time with her, and Dr. Reed is usually with them. That's enough. I've heard enough. Summer cut him off, a strange, sour feeling churning in her chest. How dare Cole? How dare he look at another woman with that expression, that softness? It was supposed to be hers, and hers alone. Just then, the study door was pushed open. Mia and Leo ran in barefoot, their faces tear-streaked. Mommy! Mia threw herself against her legs. Maria said you found Daddy. Is it true? Summer bent down and picked up her daughter, her gaze sweeping over the photo of Cole's smiling face. 3 months, he hadn't contacted his own children once. Yet here he was, smiling so happily at someone else's child in a different city. Can we go find Daddy? Leo tugged at her dress. We miss him. Summer looked at the picture-perfect trio and let out a cold laugh. Get the jet ready, she told her assistant, gently wiping the tears from Mia's face. We're going to bring Daddy home. She refused to believe Cole could genuinely care for that woman. This had to be a ploy to make her angry. After all, he had once loved her so much, loved her enough to endure 6 years of cold indifference. If she went to him personally with their children, he would surely soften. Meanwhile, in Portland, at a pottery studio called MUD Pie, Cole was intently shaping a lump of clay. Little Cece was perched on a workbench next to him, her face smudged with clay. Cole, look at my bunny, the little girl exclaimed, holding up a lopsided creation. Cole leaned in to inspect it, then reached out and dabbed a bit of clay on Cece's nose. It really is a bunny. Shouldn't a bunny have a round nose? Cece giggled and grabbed a handful of clay to retaliate. As they played, Evelyn walked over with 3 cups of hot tea, a smudge of clay on her own face. You too, she said, shaking her head with a helpless but fond smile. You've turned this place into a battlefield. Sunlight streamed through the skylight. Evelyn took out a handkerchief and naturally began to wipe the clay from Cole's cheek. Her fingers paused as they touched his skin. Realizing their proximity, the tips of her ears turned a faint pink. Cece watched them, grinning, then put down her clay. Cole, she said, her big eyes blinking. I'm so happy. I wish we could all stay together like this forever. Cole's heart skipped a beat. He looked up and met Evelyn's gentle gaze. It was a gaze filled with a tentative hope that made his own heart tremble. But then, the image of Summer and his 2 children flashed in his mind. His expression darkened, and he didn't speak. Cece, Evelyn broke the silence, pushing a small, finished bowl toward her niece. Look at this, do you like it? Cece's attention was successfully diverted. Cole looked down, his fingers unconsciously tracing the rough surface of the clay. A warmth spread through his chest, mingled with an indescribable bitterness. In the restroom, Cole stared at his reflection. 3 months had passed. The dark circles under his eyes had faded, the tight line of his mouth had relaxed, and the scars on his body were less prominent. The Portland sun and breeze seemed to have healed wounds he couldn't see. But when Cece had said, "Together forever," the faces that had flashed before his eyes were Leo's and Mia's, the 2 children he had poured everything into raising, who had then pushed him down a flight of stairs. Could he ever truly forget that past? The sun was blindingly hot. She squinted as she watched the 2 children being carried down the steps of the private jet by bodyguards. "Mommy, are we really going to see Daddy?" Mia asked, her small face tilted up, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and anxiety. "Absolutely," Summer said, smoothing her dress, her voice firm and certain. "Daddy will be so happy to see you." An assistant hurried over with a folder. "Mrs. Sterling, we've confirmed Mr. Anderson's location. He's at a pottery studio in the east part of the city, with those 2. The folder contained a candid photo. Cole was squatting in front of a little girl, gently wiping a smudge of clay from her face. A tall woman stood beside him, watching them with a smile. The sunlight streaming through the window bathed the 3 of them in a warm, idyllic glow that was painful to see. Summer's fingers tightened, crinkling the edge of the photo. "Get the car," she said coldly. "We're going now." In the car, Leo and Mia were unusually quiet. They pressed their faces against the window, watching the unfamiliar city pass by, their small hands nervously clenching the fabric of their clothes. Summer noticed they had both deliberately worn outfits Cole had bought them last year, though they were now a bit too small. "Mommy," Leo asked in a small voice, his young face etched with worry, "do you think Daddy will forgive us?" Summer didn't answer right away. She thought of the security footage, of Cole's pained expression as he fell, and the resolute set of his back as he left. "He will," she finally said, though she wasn't sure if she was lying to them or to herself. "Daddy loves you more than anything. How could he not want you?" The car pulled up in front of a pottery studio called MUD Pie. Through the large glass window, Summer saw him immediately. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, intently working a piece of clay. The sun cast a golden halo on his profile, making him look soft and bright. The little girl, Cece, suddenly grabbed a handful of clay and playfully smeared it on Cole's face. To Summer's surprise, Cole didn't get angry. He just laughed and reached to smear some back. He was laughing so freely, so genuinely. It was a smile Summer hadn't seen in years. "Daddy," at her side, Mia suddenly broke free from the bodyguard's hold and bolted toward the studio. Summer didn't have time to stop her and could only hurry after. The moment she pushed the door open, a wind chime tinkled. Cole looked up at the sound, and his smile froze. "Mia?" His voice trembled slightly. His gaze flew past the child to land on Summer, but his expression wasn't joy. It was resistance and cold indifference. What are you doing here? How did you find me?" Cece looked curiously at the intruders, instinctively hiding behind Cole. Evelyn stood up, subtly positioning herself in front of them both. "Daddy." Leo ran in too, throwing his arms around Cole's leg, his eyes welling with tears. "We miss you so much, Daddy. Have you been with these 2 people all this time? Is it because of them?" His gaze toward Cece was hostile, his glare so intense that the little girl clutched Cole's shirt in fear. Cole stood rigid, his hands hovering in the air, unsure if he should embrace them. But after seeing the look in Leo's eyes, he snapped back to reality, his own expression turning cold. He took a small step back, making no move to hug them. His gaze shifted between his children and Evelyn, finally settling on Summer. "What do you want?" His voice was quiet but sharp as a razor. Summer took a step forward, her eyes sweeping over Evelyn before locking onto Cole. "Cole, we came to take you home. Stop this game. You've punished us enough. The children know they were wrong. Come back with us." The studio fell silent. The other patrons and staff stopped what they were doing, watching the scene unfold. "Home?" Cole let out a cold laugh. "What home? Daddy, please come back with us." Mia begged, shaking his hand, all of her old petulance replaced with desperate pleading. "We'll never make you angry again." "Yeah, Dad," Leo added quickly. "We kicked Uncle Julian out. Mom said you're our only dad from now on. I'm not going back with you. Not everything can be fixed with an apology." "Why not?" Mia's tears finally spilled over. "Don't you love us anymore, Daddy?" The question was a dull knife twisting in Cole's heart. He opened his mouth, a bitter smile on his lips. Pushing me down the stairs? Framing me for the mango incident? Didn't you do those things yourselves? Saying you didn't want me as a father, that you only wanted Julian as your dad? Didn't those words come from your own mouths? I know I wasn't a perfect father, but I always did my best. I tried to take care of you, to love you. I just don't understand how it all ended up like this. The children's faces flushed with shame, but Leo, unwilling to give up, pleaded again. Dad, we were just kids. We didn't know better. We know we were wrong now. Please, can you forgive us? Before Cole could answer, Cece spoke up timidly. Cole, her small hand clutched his shirt, her big, beautiful eyes filled with tears. Are you leaving? Evelyn bent down and picked up her niece, comforting her softly. Cece, don't be scared. He won't leave you. And no matter where he chooses to go, we have to respect his decision. Even if he's not here, he'll still come visit you often. Watching this, a nameless rage ignited in Summer's chest. Who was this strange woman to use such an intimate tone? Who was she to stand there holding a child as if they were the real family? Cole, she said, stepping forward, her voice low. Stop being childish. The children need you. Are you really going to abandon your own flesh and blood to raise someone else's kid? Childish. They need me. Cole stood up, his eyes flashing with a cold light Summer had never seen before. Did they need me when they pushed me down the stairs? Did they need me when they told everyone they hated me? Did they need me when they were calling Julian dad? Each question was like a slap, silencing Summer completely. The two children were crying harder now, desperately clinging to him. We were wrong, Daddy. Mia sobbed, gasping for breath. We'll only love you from now on. We'll never hurt you again. Cole's eyes reddened, but his stance didn't waver. Evelyn quietly handed him a tissue, a small gesture that completely infuriated Summer. Who do you think you are? She demanded. What right do you have to interfere in our family's business? Evelyn calmly pushed up her glasses, her voice steady. I'm Cole's friend. As for rights, she glanced at the two weeping children. I don't think the people who hurt him have any right to ask me that question. Summer's fists clenched. Just as the tension reached its peak, Cece said in a small voice, Cole, we haven't finished our bowls yet. That simple sentence seemed to solidify Cole's resolve. He took a deep breath and turned to Summer. Please, take the children and leave. I'll say it one more time. There's nothing left for us to talk about. Daddy, the children shrieked in unison, hugging his legs tightly. Please don't leave us. The scene descended into chaos. The studio owner debated calling the police, while other customers started filming with their phones. Cole stood in the eye of the storm, his face pale. Summer looked at his trembling hands and suddenly realized she had made a fatal mistake. She thought bringing the children would be enough to move him, but she had never considered his feelings. The wounds he carried couldn't be erased with a simple apology, like a shattered vase that no matter how well repaired, would always have cracks. Leo, Mia, she said with difficulty, let's go home for now. No, Leo cried defiantly, clutching Cole's shirt. We want our dad. You promised you'd bring him home with us today. You promised. Cole closed his eyes, a tear sliding silently down his cheek. Evelyn gently placed Cece's hand in his. The little girl immediately squeezed his fingers as if to give him strength. Summer, Cole finally said, his voice now cold as ice, without a trace of hesitation. Take them away. I've already told you. I can't forgive what you've all done. If you're here to talk about child support, I can wire the money without a second thought. As for anything else, don't bring it up again. If you come back, I won't hesitate to call the police. His words were a hammer blow, shattering Summer's last shred of confidence. She had been so sure he would soften, that he would come back for the children's sake. She never imagined his resolve to leave was this absolute. She bent down and forcibly picked up her two children, ignoring their struggles and cries, and strode toward the door. Before leaving, she glanced back one last time. Cole was on the ground comforting Cece, with Evelyn standing beside them. The three of them looked so close, so happy. Cole mechanically worked the clay, his knuckles white from the force of his grip. Cece sat quietly beside him, casting worried glances his way. Cole, the little girl finally ventured, her eyes bright with concern. Are you sad? You don't look happy. Cole managed a weak smile and took the drawing. I'm fine, Cece. Don't worry about me. Go on and finish your little bowl. Evelyn silently placed a glass of warm water beside him. Do you want to take a break? He shook his head, his gaze falling on the lopsided bowl he was making, a perfect reflection of his current state of mind. The image of Leo and Mia's tear-streaked faces kept replaying in his head, making his chest feel tight. They looked thinner, he said softly, more to himself than to anyone else. Evelyn didn't reply, just sat quietly with him. Sunlight streamed through the window, making Cece's little bowl gleam. "Auntie," Cece piped up suddenly. "Let's make a present for Cole." Evelyn gently stroked her niece's hair. "Okay, sweetie. What do you want to make?" "A little house," Cece said excitedly. "That way Cole will have a new home." The innocent words made Cole's nose sting. He looked at the little girl so seriously shaping the clay, and at Evelyn, her guide, and realized that without him even noticing, these two had become an essential part of his life. "Cece," he asked softly, "why do you want to make me a house?" The little girl looked up, her eyes clear and deep. "Because you're sad. Andy says a home is supposed to make you happy. I want you to be happy." Cole's eyes reddened again. Evelyn looked down, embarrassed, the tips of her ears turning pink. "She's just a child, Cole. Please don't be sad." "Thank you," Cole said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. But he quickly broke into a watery smile. "Meeting you both has made me very happy." Cece immediately threw her arms around him, her small hands clutching his neck. "Then can we be together forever, like a real family?" Evelyn's hand froze in midair, a piece of clay slipping from her fingers. Her eyes met Cole's, and they both blushed. "Cece," she gently chided, "don't say that. You'll put pressure on him." "It's okay," Cole said with a soft laugh. He stroked the little girl's hair and looked at Evelyn, his gaze gentle but firm. "I would be honored to be a part of your lives." Two pairs of eyes lit up before him like twin stars. Cole looked at the big and little figures in front of him and couldn't help but smile. The ache in his chest slowly being replaced by a new feeling. It was a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a very long time. Business at Cole's bookstore had been quiet for days. A black Maybach was parked persistently across the street, its occupant keeping a silent vigil. "Cole, look at my drawing." Cece came running over with a crayon picture, but she stopped when she saw his expression. "Cole," she asked cautiously, "are you sad again?" Cole managed a weak smile and took the drawing. "This is great. Is it a bunny?" "Yep." Cece nodded enthusiastically, then pointed out the window. "Is it because those bad people are back? Is that why you're sad?" Evelyn emerged from behind a bookshelf with a steaming cup of tea. She subtly stood in front of the window, blocking the view of the car. "Should we call the police?" she asked quietly. Cole shook his head, his voice cold. "They'll give up eventually." The rain grew heavier. Suddenly, the car door across the street flew open. Mia, holding an umbrella far too big for her, stumbled out and ran toward the bookstore. The rain soaked her dress and little patent leather shoes, but she didn't care, just hammered on the locked door. "Daddy, please open the door." Her small, tearful voice cut through the rain. "I know you're in there, Daddy. You saw us. Why are you ignoring me and Leo? Do you really not want us anymore?" Cole's fingers gripped the curtain so tightly his knuckles turned white. Evelyn silently placed her warm hand over his trembling one. "This is the last time," Cole said suddenly, his gaze hardening with resolve. "I'm going to end this with them once and for all." He took out his phone, found the number he had blocked so long ago, and sent a single text message. At a cafe, Cole chose a table by the window. Soon, Summer arrived with the two children. She wasn't wearing her usual power suit, just a simple white shirt that was wrinkled and clung to her body. The dark circles under her eyes were stark. The children, too, were dressed in dirty clothes, looking thin and utterly wretched. "Daddy!" Mia rushed toward him, but he sidestepped her just before she could touch him. "Sit," Cole said, gesturing to the opposite chairs, his voice unerringly calm. Summer flinched. "Cole, the children have been having a terrible time. Their health was never strong, and without you—" "I know," he interrupted, pulling a manila folder from his bag. "This is the journal I kept for them from birth until now. Everything you need to know about taking care of them is in here. Allergy lists, medication records. They're not babies anymore. I'm sure you can handle it." Summer's face went chalk white. "What do you mean by this? I don't want this." "Cole, don't you understand? We just want you back." Cole looked at her. He looked down and gave a sarcastic little laugh, then slowly rolled up his left sleeve, revealing a jagged scar. "Remember this? from the broken glass when Leo pushed me down the stairs. His tone was flat. I got 12 stitches that night. While I was at the hospital, you three were at home with Julian playing happy family. The color drained from Leo's face. He stared at the scar, his lips trembling. Dad, I didn't mean to. Cole shook his head slightly, then lifted his pant leg, revealing the horrific scar on his calf. It was a massive, centipede-like gash, as if a chunk of his flesh had been carved out. And this one is from when Julian and I were trapped in the elevator, and you said he had to play the piano, so you abandoned me without a second thought. His voice was quiet but cut like a knife. I almost lost this leg. Every one of you says you didn't mean to. Cole's gaze shifted to Summer, dripping with undisguised irony. Just like you didn't mean to frame me for the mangoes, or didn't mean to tell everyone you hated me. So what about me? All the pain I went through, is it supposed to just disappear because you all say a half-hearted I didn't mean to? Mia burst into tears, trying to hug his arm. But we know we were wrong now. Dad, please come home. We'll never do it again. Cole looked at his weeping daughter, and for the first time, felt a strange calm instead of the familiar, twisting pain. He just sat there, waiting for the cries to subside. At last, he began slowly, each word feeling like it was being ripped from his chest. I once truly loved you all so much. Mia, you were only 4 pounds when you were born, and I sat by your incubator for 7 days and nights. Leo, when you were being bullied and were too scared to go to school, I walked you to your classroom door every single day. I remembered every one of your birthdays. I baked your cakes by hand. But love can be exhausted. When you pushed me down the stairs, when you said you never wanted to see me again, when you chose Julian to be your father, everything between us ended. I came here today to tell you this. Cole stood up, placing cash under his coffee cup. He spoke each word clearly. I'm not coming back. This isn't to punish you. It's because I have a new life now, and I refuse to be dragged back into the mud with you. He turned and walked away. Mia's heart-wrenching sobs echoed behind him, but his steps never faltered. Daddy, please don't leave us. Cole pushed open the cafe door. Across the street, Evelyn was waiting by her car with Cece. The little girl saw him and immediately broke away from her aunt, running toward him. Cole. Cece threw herself into his arms, her small hands anxiously touching his face. Are you okay? Did they bully you? Cole bent down and scooped her up, kissing her soft cheek. I'm okay, sweetie. Let's go home. Evelyn walked over, and without asking a single question, she gently linked her arm with his. The three of them walked toward the car, their figures harmonious in the afternoon sun. Inside the cafe, Mia's cries slowly faded. Summer stared blankly out the window, watching Cole get into a strange car, watching the little girl nestling affectionately in his arms, watching the other woman gently fasten his seatbelt for him. Mommy. Leo tugged at her sleeve, his voice filled with a fear she had never heard before. Is Daddy really never coming back? Summer didn't answer. The certainty she had felt before arriving was completely gone. This time, it seemed they had truly and completely lost him. The little girl, dressed in a sunny yellow dress, hummed a tuneless song as she skipped around, looking utterly content. What are you thinking about? A pair of warm hands wrapped around him from behind. Evelyn rested her chin gently on his back. She smelled faintly of hospital antiseptic, clearly just home from her shift. I was thinking, Cole smiled before he even turned around, about the first time we met, when you brought Cece in to buy picture books. Evelyn laughed softly, her eyes full of tenderness. Even back then, I was thinking, how is my old college friend still so handsome after all these years? You're such a flatterer. Cole chuckled, his laughter shaking his shoulders. Their laughter reached Cece in the yard. The little girl dropped her watering can and flew up the stairs like a little butterfly. Auntie, Cole, what secrets are you telling? Evelyn bent down and scooped up her niece, kissing her dirt-smudged cheek. I was just asking Cole if he'd be willing to stay with us forever. Cece's eyes lit up instantly. She grabbed Cole's sleeve. Really? Is Cole going to stay with us forever? Cole's heart felt like it had been steeped in warm water. He took Cece from Evelyn, and meeting the little girl's hopeful gaze, he nodded. If Cece wants me to. I do. Cece cheered, hugging his neck tightly before turning to Evelyn. Auntie, hurry up and give Cole the ring, just like on TV. The tips of Evelyn's ears turned red. She pulled a small red velvet box from her pocket and handed it to him. Cole Anderson. she began, her voice trembling slightly. Will you? I will, Cole answered firmly. Before she could even finish the question, tears welled in his eyes, but a blissful smile spread across his face. Their wedding was set for 3 months later. On the day, the sun was exceptionally beautiful. Evelyn, in a simple white dress, held a bouquet of wildflowers Cece had picked for her and walked toward Cole amidst the blessings of their friends and family. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Cece eagerly rushed into his arms, chirping, Uncle Cole. At the back of the crowd, 3 lonely figures stood, one large, 2 small. I'll handle it, Evelyn said, squeezing his hand. No, I'll go, Cole said, taking a deep breath and walking toward the entrance. The moment he opened the door, Mia ran up to him. Daddy, you look so handsome today. Cole stepped back, avoiding her embrace. What are you doing here? He asked coldly. Summer's gaze drifted past him to the wedding ceremony inside. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes filled with a wistful longing. We didn't mean any harm. We just wanted to wish you well. I don't need it. Cole's voice was quiet but firm. Please leave. His words, though soft, landed like a blow. Summer's face went pale. She reached for her 2 crying children, a look of despair in her eyes. Leo, Mia, let's go. No. Mia broke free from her mother's grasp and threw herself at Cole's legs, wailing, Daddy, please look at me. Just look at me. Cole looked down at the daughter he had once cherished more than anything. He didn't bend down. He simply gently removed her small hands from his leg. Goodbye, Mia. And you too, Leo. Don't look for me again. Go live your new lives. I have a new life to live too. As he turned, he heard Summer's choked sobs and the children's heart-wrenching cries behind him. But when he walked back into the reception and saw Cece running toward him with a small flower basket, and Evelyn standing in the sunlight, smiling at him, all those other sounds became distant and fuzzy. Later, Cole heard from their old housekeeper that things were not going well for the Sterlings. After Julian was kicked out, the house was a constant mess. Summer was buried in work, and the 2 children, now boarding at school, had become even more difficult and withdrawn. They had tried to come to Portland to find him again, but were stopped by security at his gated community. Sometimes Cole would dream of the past. He'd dream of staying up all night when Leo had a high fever, of the children's smiling faces the first time they called him Daddy. When he woke, Evelyn would always sense it, holding him and comforting him softly. Cole, do you ever regret it? She asked him once hesitantly. Cole looked out at the 2 stray cats playing with Cece in the yard and shook his head. I'm happy now. The future is bright. I'm not looking back. Just then, Cece ran over with the 2 kittens in her arms, her face smudged with grass. Uncle Cole, they're so cute. Can we keep them? Of course we can, he said, smiling lovingly, stroking Cece's sweaty little face. This is our home. You're the boss. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the 3 of them. The darkness that had once enveloped him would never touch him again.